If you have ever been wronged, betrayed, or treated unjustly, and felt that knot of despair tightening in your soul, if you've ever laid awake at night, asking the silence why those who cause pain seem to prosper, then this message is for you. There is an ancient story, a quiet wisdom whispered from master to student for over 1,000 years, that was designed specifically to bring peace to a heart like yours. This is not a simple fable, but an invitation to step out of the chaotic courtroom of your own mind, where you are forced to be the victim, the prosecutor, and the judge, all at once. It is an invitation to witness a higher court, a universal law of balance so precise, so patient, and so perfect that its workings are often invisible to the hurried, wounded eye. We believe justice must be swift and loud to be real, but the deepest truths of the universe move in silence, like the turning of the stars. The story comes to us from the golden age of Baghdad, from the court of the 5th Abbasid Caliph, Harun al-Rashid, a ruler known not just for his power, but for his profound wisdom, often sought in the quiet company of Sufi mystics. This is not merely a historical account. It is a living map, a spiritual technology for navigating the most painful landscapes of the human heart. It is a story about a rose, a nightingale, a snake, and the inescapable echo of our own actions. It is a promise that nothing is ever lost and no debt is ever left unpaid. So, take a slow, deep breath. Allow the noise of the world to fade. Allow the ache of your own grievances to soften just for this moment, and let us walk together into the Caliph's garden, where a secret of cosmic justice is waiting to be revealed. In the heart of the bustling city of Baghdad, a place of scholars and poets, of commerce and chaos, there existed a sanctuary of perfect stillness, the Caliph's private garden. And within this garden, amidst countless wonders of botany and fragrance, one flower captured the soul of the Caliph. It was a rose. But it was not just any rose. It seemed to have been crafted by the hand of the divine artist himself. Its form was a study in sacred geometry. Its color, a shade of crimson that held the secrets of both sunset and dawn. And its scent was a prayer on the air. A fragrance that could quiet the most turbulent mind and open the most guarded heart. This rose was, for Harun al-Rashid, a symbol of a deeper reality. It was a focal point for his contemplation, a living testament to the beauty and order that underlies all of creation. It was the manifestation of perfection in a world of imperfection. In modern psychological terms, we might say it was his anchor, a sensory gateway to a state of presence and peace. He saw in it the reflection of the soul in its purest state, unblemished, whole, and radiating its essential nature without effort. He summoned his head gardener, a man whose hands were intimate with the language of the soil. The Caliph's command was simple, yet laden with immense weight. "This rose," he said, his voice quiet but absolute, "is to be your most sacred trust. Guard it. Nurture it. Let no harm befall it, for in its well-being I find a measure of peace for my own spirit." The gardener understood. This was no longer a mere botanical task. It was a sacred duty. The rose became the sun around which his days revolved. Every morning, at the first hint of dawn, when the air was still cool and filled with dew, his first act was to attend to this single perfect flower. He would check its leaves for the slightest blemish, ensure its soil was perfectly moist, and whisper words of encouragement to it as if it were his own child. He poured his own life force into its existence. The rose was not just the Caliph's source of peace, it had become the gardener's entire purpose. In a way, the rose represents that part of ourselves we deem most precious, our innocence, our capacity for love, our inner peace, our connection to something sacred. And the gardener represents our conscious self, the ego, working tirelessly to protect this fragile inner treasure from the harshness of the world. Then, one morning, the delicate balance of the garden was shattered. As the gardener approached his sacred charge, a scene of devastation met his eyes. A nightingale, a creature whose song was usually celebrated as a symbol of divine love and longing, had visited the rose. But it had not come to sing. It had come in a fit of what seemed like pure, senseless destruction. The branch was bare, stripped of its glory. Every single perfect petal lay scattered and torn on the ground below, like crimson teardrops on the dark earth. The soul of the garden had been violated. The gardener's heart seized with a cold, terrifying dread. This was more than a professional failure. It was a spiritual catastrophe. All his devotion, all his meticulous care had been undone in a matter of moments by a creature of whim and instinct. He saw the Caliph's wrath, the loss of his position, the shame of his failure. This is the first stage of experiencing injustice, the shock, the disbelief, the feeling of utter powerlessness. Our carefully constructed world of peace and order is torn apart by an act we cannot comprehend. In a state of pure panic, a manifestation of what neuroscientists would call an amygdala hijack, where the brain's fear center overrides rational thought, he ran to the palace. He threw himself before the Caliph, the story of the desecration pouring out of him in a torrent of fear and despair. "My Sultan," he cried, his voice trembling, "the rose, our rose, a nightingale has torn it to pieces. Not a single leaf remains upon the stem." He expected fury, an immediate sentence, a storm of royal anger. But Harun al-Rashid did not storm. He sat in a state of profound calm, his eyes holding a depth that seemed to see beyond the immediate event. He listened to the gardener's frantic report with a stillness that was in itself a teaching. When the gardener was finished, breathless and awaiting his doom, the Caliph spoke, his voice as calm as a deep river. "Do not grieve, gardener," he said softly. "Do not trouble your heart. The nightingale's deed will not remain with it. The universe keeps a perfect ledger." This is the first great lesson from the heart of Sufi wisdom, a lesson that finds its echo in the highest forms of philosophy. The ancient Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." The Caliph was not practicing denial or apathy. He was demonstrating a profound trust in a universal principle of balance, what might be called the mizan, the divine scale. He understood that to react with rage and despair was to allow the nightingale's chaotic energy to enter his own soul. He chose instead to remain in his own center, to trust that the cosmic system, in its own time and in its own way, would correct the imbalance. He was teaching the gardener and us to step back from the immediate adrenalized reaction and to place our faith in a process larger than our own anger. He was moving from the reactive emotional brain to the calm observing wisdom of the higher mind. The gardener, though not fully understanding the depth of the Caliph's words, felt a wave of relief wash over him. The immediate threat of punishment was gone. He took solace in his master's strange confidence and returned to his duties, his heart still heavy, but no longer in the grip of terror. A few days passed. The garden continued its life. The sun rose and set, and the memory of the rose's destruction began to soften. Then, one afternoon, as the gardener was tending to a bed of jasmine near a stone wall, he witnessed the next chapter of the story unfold. He saw a flash of movement in the grass, a brief, desperate flutter of wings. It was the nightingale, but it was not singing. It was trapped in the coils of a long, dark serpent. Before the gardener could even process the scene, the snake constricted and with a sickening finality swallowed the small bird. It then slithered away, disappearing into the undergrowth, leaving behind only a profound silence. A surge of fierce, triumphant joy shot through the gardener. Justice! He had seen it with his own eyes. The universe had indeed kept its promise. The creature that had destroyed his beautiful rose had met a terrible end. He felt vindicated, his faith in the Caliph's wisdom solidified. He dropped his tools and ran once more to the palace, this time his face alight with excitement. "Sultan!" he exclaimed, bowing low, "your words were true. The nightingale, I saw a snake capture and devour it just now. The one who destroyed your beloved rose has paid the price." He expected the Caliph to share his triumphant satisfaction. He expected a nod of approval, a shared sense of cosmic victory. But again, Harun al-Rashid's reaction was not what he anticipated. The Caliph's expression remained one of serene, untroubled contemplation. He showed no sign of vindictive pleasure. He simply nodded slowly. "Do not be so quick to celebrate, gardener," he replied, his voice even and measured. "The matter is not yet concluded. The nightingale's sigh will not remain with the snake. It, too, will find what it has earned." Here, the story deepens into a far more subtle and challenging territory. This is the second teaching. We, in our modern world, are often addicted to the spectacle of retribution. We crave the downfall of those who have wronged us or others. Social media has created a culture of public shaming, of deriving a sense of righteousness from witnessing the punishment of others. The gardener's joy is our joy when we see a corrupt politician exposed, a rival company fail, or a personal enemy suffer a misfortune. But the Caliph warns us, this is a dangerous trap for the soul. By taking the life of the nightingale, the snake, while acting according to its own nature, has now entered the chain of consequence. It has absorbed the nightingale's debt. The act of retribution, even when it seems natural or just, does not end the cycle of imbalance. It merely transfers the debt to a new account. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche famously warned, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." The snake, by becoming the instrument of justice, has now become entangled in the very drama it concluded. It has inhaled the sigh of the nightingale, its final breath, its suffering, its energetic imprint. The gardener returned to his work, now more pensive than before. The Caliph's words had planted a seed of disquiet in his mind. The simple, satisfying equation of crime and punishment had been complicated. A few more days went by. The gardener was clearing a patch of overgrown weeds at the edge of the garden, his mind still mulling over the Caliph's cryptic wisdom. As he swung his heavy hoe, he felt a slithering movement near his feet. He looked down and saw it, the same dark serpent, emerging from the very weeds he was clearing. In a flash, instinct took over. A surge of fear, mixed with a residual memory of the nightingale and a sense of his own power, propelled him into action. He did not hesitate. He raised his heavy iron hoe high and brought it down with all his might, severing the serpent's head from its body. The creature lay dead at his feet. A moment of shocked silence hung in the air. Then, a new feeling arose in the gardener, different from before. It was not just vindication, it was a sense of power, of agency. He had not merely witnessed justice, he had delivered it. He was no longer a passive observer of the universe's grand design. He was an active participant, an executioner of its will. The cycle, he thought, was now complete. He, the humble gardener, had closed the loop. Filled with a sense of proud accomplishment, he made his third trip to the Caliph. He recounted the event with breathless excitement. "Sultan, the story is now finished. The snake that killed the nightingale, I have killed it with my own hoe. I have avenged them both." Harun al-Rashid looked at the gardener for a long time. There was no praise in his eyes, only a deep, penetrating wisdom tinged with something that looked like sorrow. His voice, when he finally spoke, was quieter than ever. "Wait,
gardener," he said. "Simply wait. Do not assume your hand is the one to end this story. The snake's sigh will not remain with you. You, too, will see the consequence of what you have done." This is the third and perhaps most crucial teaching of the story. The moment we take retribution into our own hands, the moment we decide that we are the arbiters of justice, we step out of the role of the wounded and into the role of the wounder. We become the monster we sought to destroy. The gardener, in his righteous act, has now taken on the debt of the snake, which had already taken on the debt of the nightingale. He has willingly inserted himself into the chain of karmic consequence. This wisdom speaks directly to the poison of resentment and the fantasy of revenge. Modern psychology teaches us that holding on to anger and a desire for revenge is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. It corrodes our inner world. We begin to think like our enemies, to adopt their tactics, to allow our inner landscape to be dominated by their memory. The gardener, whose sole purpose was to cultivate beauty, has now become a killer. His hands, once used to nurture life, have now taken it. He has allowed the violence that entered his garden to enter his own heart and guide his own actions. He has forgotten his true purpose: to tend the rose, not to police the world. As predicted, it was not long before the final turn of the wheel. The gardener, in a matter unrelated to the garden, made a grave error in his duties, a transgression against the palace rules. He was arrested and brought in chains before the Caliph for judgment. The court officials presented the case, and the verdict was clear. The law demanded a severe punishment. Harun al-Rashid, in his official capacity as ruler and judge, had no choice. He looked at the terrified gardener and pronounced the sentence: "Take him to the dungeon." As the guards seized him, dragging him from the hall, something broke loose in the gardener. All fear fell away, replaced by a moment of stunning, desperate clarity. He was no longer just a gardener. He was a man who had been given a profound education in the nature of reality, and he would not go to his fate in silence. He twisted in the guard's grip, and his voice, clear and strong, rang out across the throne room, addressed not to the judge, but to the sage.
"Sultan," he called out, "you told me the nightingale's deed will not remain with it, and a snake devoured it. You told me the nightingale's sigh will not remain with the snake, and I killed it. Now you say my deed will not remain with me, and you are sending me to prison. Justice finds everyone. No one's action is left unaccounted for. So I ask you, great Caliph, if the deeds of the bird, the snake, and the gardener do not remain with them, will yours? By punishing me, you enter the chain yourself. A consequence will surely find you for what you do to me today. Therefore I say to you, release me. Do not do this to me, so that another will not do it to you." A profound hush fell over the court. The guards froze, their hands still on the gardener. Every eye turned to the Caliph. The gardener had thrown the Caliph's own wisdom back in his face, not as an insult, but as a plea for a higher application of the very law the Caliph himself had taught. He was asking the Caliph to be more than a king who enforces the law. He was asking him to be a sage who can transcend it, to be the one who finally breaks the chain of retribution. Harun al-Rashid sat motionless on his throne for a long time, his face unreadable. The silence stretched on, thick with tension. Then, slowly, he nodded. A faint smile touched his lips. He had not been challenged, he had been understood. "You have spoken the truth," the Caliph said, his voice filled with a new warmth. he turned to the guards. "Release him. Let the gardener return to his work. Let him go and water his flowers." The gardener was freed, stumbling back into the light, his mind reeling from the turn of events. But one of the Caliph's ministers, a man of rigid law and order, was appalled. He approached the throne and spoke in a hushed, urgent tone. "My Sultan, with all respect, this is a mistake. If you do not deliver the required punishment, then his deed will have remained with him. You will have broken the very law you so often speak of. Justice will not have been served." Harun al-Rashid looked at his minister, and his final reply contains the ultimate secret of this entire teaching. "No," he said, his voice resonating with absolute authority. "You are mistaken. No one's deed ever remains with them. Justice is never cheated. Sometimes, when a debt is not paid in the immediate and visible world, it is not because it has been forgotten. It is because it has been deferred for a much, much heavier payment in the hereafter. The truly unfortunate are not those who are punished swiftly, but those whose accounts are allowed to accumulate for a final reckoning they cannot possibly imagine. The ignorant man believes he has gotten away with it, but the wise man knows that the universe never, ever forgets." This is the final, most profound layer of wisdom. It asks us to radically redefine our understanding of justice. Our human desire is for immediate, visible, tangible consequences. But the universe operates on a timescale that is cosmic, not human. The hereafter can be understood not merely as a theological afterlife, but as the inescapable, long-term unfolding of consequence. A person who builds a life on deceit and harm may acquire wealth and power, the visible signs of success, but they are simultaneously weaving a fabric of inner reality that is impoverished, fearful, and disconnected. They are accumulating a spiritual debt that will manifest as a poverty of soul, a hollowness of being which is a far greater dungeon than any stone cell. Their actions shape their consciousness, and that consciousness is the ultimate reality they must inhabit. This is the heavier payment to become, in the fullness of time, the living embodiment of one's own negativity.
The story invites us to lift our gaze from the immediate drama of earthly justice and to place our trust in this infallible, albeit slow-moving, cosmic law. It liberates us from the exhausting and soul-corrupting burden of being the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Now, let us bring this ancient idea into the garden of your own life. Let us make this a moment of stillness, a practical contemplation. Find a comfortable position. Close your eyes if that feels right for you. Take a slow, deep breath in, and as you exhale, release the tension in your shoulders, your jaw, your hands. Bring to mind a time when you were wronged, an injustice, large or small, that still carries a charge for you. Don't immerse yourself in the pain, but rather observe it as if you were the Caliph, watching a story unfold. See the event clearly. See the nightingale, the person or situation that tore the petals from your inner rose. Feel the gardener's panic and pain, that initial shock and feeling of powerlessness. Acknowledge that this pain is real and valid. Now, breathe. Remember the Caliph's first words, "Do not grieve. The deed will not remain with them." As you exhale, I want you to consciously release the need for an immediate, visible outcome. Surrender the case to a higher court. You are not dropping the charges. You are simply handing the file over to a power more patient and more wise than your own wounded ego.
You are releasing the demand that justice happen on your schedule and in the way you imagine it. Now, consider if there has been a snake in your story. Have you witnessed a downfall or a misfortune befall the one who harmed you? Have you ever felt that surge of triumphant joy the gardener felt? Acknowledge it without judgment. And now, hear the Caliph's second warning. The nightingale's sigh will not remain with the snake. Recognize that the cycle of retribution is a trap. That momentary satisfaction is a poisoned fruit. With your next exhale, release the need to feed on the misfortunes of others. Release the desire to see them punished, not for their sake, but for yours. To free yourself from being chained to their fate. Finally, and this is the most difficult part, look honestly within your own heart. Have you ever been tempted to pick up the hoe? Have you, in your anger and pain, wielded words like weapons? Have you wished for harm, spread gossip, or engaged in acts of subtle revenge, telling yourself it was justified? Have you become the gardener who kills the snake? If so, hear the Caliph's gentle but firm words. The snake's sigh will not remain with you. This is not a condemnation, but an invitation to freedom. As you breathe out, consciously lay down the heavy hoe of vengeance. Lay down the burden of being the one who has to balance the scales. It is not your job. It never was. Your job is not to kill the snakes in your life. Your job is to tend to the roses. Your job is to cultivate your own inner garden.
Take one final, deep breath. And as you exhale, feel the immense relief of letting go of this burden. You are not the judge. You are not the executioner. You are the gardener. And your only true and sacred task is to return to your garden, to nurture what is beautiful, to cultivate what is alive, to tend to the new buds of peace and resilience that can now, finally, begin to grow again in the space you have cleared. The profound beauty of this 1,000-year-old story is its final, liberating message. It is not a call for passivity, but for a higher form of action. The most powerful act you can perform in the face of injustice is not to seek revenge, but to refuse to participate in the cycle of harm. It is to consciously withdraw your energy from the narrative of resentment and reinvest it in the cultivation of your own soul. To forgive in this context is not a sentimental act of letting someone off the hook. It is a deeply pragmatic, strategic act of self-liberation. It is cutting the energetic cord that binds you to the person who harmed you. As long as you hate them, wish them ill, and check for news of their downfall, you are still their prisoner. You have given them free rent in the most precious real estate you own, your own mind and heart. The pardon you grant is not for them. It is the key to your own cell. The wisdom of Harun al-Rashid teaches us that our obsession with the fate of the nightingale, the snake, and everyone else who harms us is a distraction from our primary purpose. While we are busy watching them, our own garden falls into neglect. Weeds of bitterness grow. The soil of our heart becomes hard and toxic. The potential for new roses to bloom withers away. So tonight, when you lay your head down, you can release that knot of despair. You can quiet the voice that endlessly argues its case in the dark. The universe keeps a perfect ledger. The scales of justice are self-correcting, balancing themselves in ways and on timelines far beyond our comprehension. Your faith is not in the leniency of the cosmos, but in its mathematical perfection. Nothing is ever forgotten. You are free. free from the need to watch, to wait, to hope for another suffering. Your freedom lies in picking up your watering can, not your hoe. It lies in turning your face back toward the sun. It lies in finding a new patch of earth within your own being and having the courage to plant a single, beautiful rose. For your sacred duty is not to dispense justice upon the world, but to cultivate peace within your soul. And that is a power that no injustice can ever take away.